Good morning. Coffee with Lilli this morning. Happy Tuesday. Some thoughts about abandonment today. Trying to think where this came from. I think I've been noticing patterns in my life and people that are close to me, and also my closer inner circle of align into authenticity clients. That, and if you've been in the healing space for a while, you know about abandonment wounds and about how most of them come from childhood, where it could kind of be two things. It could be either your family was really enmeshed, so there was a lot of boundaries that were constantly broken in different ways, or it could be that someone, hey Jen, or it could be that someone really close to you was in and out of your life and not a constant force in your life. And or it could have been a major rupture, like a sudden death, or I don't know what it could be. A lot of things, but it would be basically when you were small, when someone just left and there wasn't really any communication about it. There wasn't really, not necessarily closure, but there wasn't any kind of emotional stability around that incident. And if you follow me for a while, you know a little bit about my story, but this got me thinking a little bit about my one of my past toxic relationships. And I definitely think there's a lot of abandonment going into play, abandonment wounding, 1 minute, going into play as we got back together again and again and again. And I think as women, I think the typical pattern that I see is that women typically stay in relationships too long. And whether that be, again, here I talk about relationships as in maybe a holistic view. It could be romantic, friendship, in a job, what have you. But I think women typically stay in relationships too long, and men typically leave too quickly. And the fear of being alone is a deep fear, likely, as I mentioned before, of something that happened in the past, of, again, abandonment or a rupture in a relationship, or something happened where there are kind of your coping mechanisms today are all keeping you in this kind of fear cycle of not wanting to be alone. And if you think about it, back in the day, you know, we are humans after all, and we are like living beings. So back in the day, like way, way back in the day, in the caveman days, this was a real fear, right? A single woman or even a single man out in the wilderness trying to survive alone has a less chance of survival than does a community. And so it would make sense, even though those particular instances really don't apply today, we still have those instincts in us. And there's just so much kind of like I said, that there's a big fear of if we are in things that we know that aren't right for us, yet we stay there. And we, again, like if it's a pattern of staying there too long, then it may be something to look at and clear emotionally some blocks around being alone, or what happened in the past, or, you know, what kind of trauma or wounding is there that can be healed at that root cause. Because what I found, just in my experience, is that even if I left, I would leave for a few months, but then I would be kind of magnetically drawn back into these unhealthy relationships because I had that wounding. And I didn't know it at the time, which is kind of why I'm here speaking about it. I didn't know it at the time, but it makes sense now that I was driven back into these unhealthy relationships because I really didn't have, I really didn't feel like I had any other options. So in order for me to survive, I just had to have people around me, even if those people were unhealthy. So I hope that makes sense. But here's kind of what I wanted to point out today, is that here I kind of talk about, I talk about healing, and I talk about really stepping forward into the best version of yourself, pulling forth the higher self of you that really roots itself in love and healing and self-love and all of the good juicy stuff that you can really learn to kind of like heal and bring forward, so that your relationships and your surroundings really come into alignment with that who you really are. And I really do think that when you avoid abandonment, right, from that fear, that really deep-rooted fear that likely that you can't heal by yourself. Well, I'm almost 100% you can't heal that by yourself, because I do that now. I would still be healing alone had I not stepped into support in therapy and also different coaches. But the more that we kind of go into that hole of fear of change, or fear of abandonment, or fear of pain even, the more that we kind of abandon our true, beautiful self, especially if we're seeing patterns that are not good for us, right? That if we are in constant anxiety or depression or controlling behavior, or things that are we're noticing that are happening again and again. So just really a little bit straightforward today, but just a thought is that if you're seeing yourself and if you know that you're fearing abandonment, there probably is a root cause thing that you need to heal, a deeper thing than just mindset or making really swift changes without support. A lot of it is really not abandoning yourself anymore. Because what's funny, I think what's so interesting about coping mechanisms, or Mastin Kipp calls it survival patterns, which is fear of abandonment, for example, is what we're talking about today. But I think what's so interesting is that whatever our survival pattern is, whether that be, especially if it comes to other people or things outside of ourselves, it really doubles back and internalizes deep within us. So if you continue to avoid abandonment, you are going to continue to abandon your true inner self. Does that make sense? I hope it does. So just a thought, and hopefully a little bit of a light bulb today. Feel free to reach out and DM me if you have questions. But if you are kind of fearing whether you should stay or whether you should go, or if you know that you don't want to be alone, but you're in something that's really bad for you, job, money, friendship, romantic, whatever it is, if that relationship is causing you strife, it just may be something to look at. Is this really for my highest good? Or do I just keep on kind of putting it to the side and kind of abandoning my true wants and needs and desires? And big love today.